I'm Emily, a 33-year-old who loves both cooking and eating. My husband, Michael, who is 2 years older than me, also loves to eat. We met at a morning buffet. It was an all-you-can-eat and drink for $6, and as a big eater, I went there every weekend. That's where Michael, who also came every weekend, approached me. He was quite handsome, and despite eating a lot, he was slim, which I had always envied. I said to him, "Michael, you eat so much but don't gain weight." Then he laughed and said, "Well, I barely eat anything 6 days a week because I'm broke." He told me, "Emily, you eat as much as I do but you're still slim." So I said, "I run in the park every morning and evening for this meal," and our conversation took off from there, leading to weekend buffet dates. After dating for 3 years and when the topic of marriage came up, I thought we were a perfect match in terms of personality. But there was one thing that worried me. Michael's salary was quite low, as he mentioned about his broke lifestyle. Honestly, it was about the same as mine, working as a clerk in a small company. If we combined our salaries, we could just manage as a couple, but if we had a child, it seemed impossible, which worried me. However, Michael, being carefree, said, "It'll be fine. There are families with less income and 2 kids. Worst case, we can borrow from my dad. Indeed, my parents would also probably help us out for their grandchild." So, with such wishful thinking, we decided to marry not having a ceremony or reception. However, it didn't take a month to realize that our financial planning was too optimistic. Renting a new apartment involved not just rent, but also a security deposit, key money, brokerage fees, and moving expenses. For furniture, which we had previously made do with cheap items, Michael ordered a set costing several $1,000s without consulting me. We had to buy new curtains because the sizes didn't match. We also had to repurchase all our dishes after Michael accidentally broke them during the moving. Our new home was indeed lovely, but I was anxious about how much would be deducted from our account next month. Most purchases were on credit, and though they were paid from Michael's account, we agreed to split all marriage-related expenses. So the first bill after our marriage made me tremble. We needed to cut back on our expenses. We agreed to set up a joint account, each contributing a fixed amount monthly for utilities and essential marital expenses. And to discuss if funds fell short. But there wasn't much to cut back on. As we both worked full-time, we were only home 1 or 2 days a week, so our utility bills were already low. I switched to a budget cell phone plan, but Michael insisted on staying with a major carrier. For clothes, I shopped at fast fashion and thrift stores, but Michael refused. Even for cosmetics, I tried making my own, but Michael started ordering expensive hair growth products online. And he even tried to pay for them from our joint account. I complained, "Isn't it strange that we have to pay for your hair growth treatment from our joint account?" But Michael argued, "What are you talking about? It'd be embarrassing for you too if your husband was bald, right? So, it's an issue we should tackle together." There was no choice but to cut down on our food expenses. I utilized the internet for budget recipes, compared flyers from nearby supermarkets to shop at the cheapest one. Even if it meant dragging a shopping cart and walking 30 minutes, and took advantage of evening sales. I also borrowed wisdom from my grandmother, who was frugal since she was born in the early 1900s. Thanks to these efforts, our monthly food expenses, which were nearly $500, were reduced to $300. Of course, this was while still considering nutrition and taste. I was proud of myself as a competent wife, but then, hey, what's this $295.61? It looks like it was withdrawn at the end of the month. Michael, who happened to check our joint account, asked me, "Oh, that's for our food expenses for this month." I had been paying up front and withdrawing the total from our joint account at the end of the month. No way, $300 for a month? That's right. Isn't it great? Michael looked at me, who had just replied with a bit of pride, with disbelief. "What are you talking about? Why does it cost $300? What do you mean? $300 for a couple is quite low. No way, it should be more like $200 at most." I was so flabbergasted, I ended up staring at Michael as if to bore holes into his face. Sure, maybe it's possible if you're a full-time homemaker, diligent, and getting things like vegetables and eggs from your parents' farm. But I work full-time and my parents aren't farmers, so they can't send us anything. Honestly, I'm so exhausted every day from resisting the urge to take shortcuts with ready-made meals and still cooking after a long day at work. Moreover, Michael eats the amount of 2 men and even tries to buy snacks from our joint account saying, "I need sweets because I'm working hard for our life together." I've lost count of how many times I've snapped at him, saying, "Hey, our house isn't an all-you-can-eat buffet." Still, keeping our monthly food expenses to $300 should be commended, right? It might seem trivial, but my feelings for Michael plummeted rapidly. Seeing me like this, Michael apparently thought of getting his mom to scold me for being wrong. Out of the blue, he suggested visiting his parents' house over the weekend. I was actually hoping his mom, Susan, would give him a piece of her mind, so I agreed readily. Susan has been a full-time homemaker for 37 years, a real pro. She's particularly good at turning one ingredient into a variety of dishes. For example, with one radish, she uses the leaves for toppings or fillings, the skin for stir-fry, and the flesh for stews, leaving almost nothing to waste. Before we got married, I used to visit his parents' house and learn a lot from her. When we arrived at his parents' house, Susan immediately served dinner. Though she went a bit fancy knowing we were coming, it was her usual budget-friendly cooking: soy pulp burgers, egg and seafood stick omelette with sauce, and pickled vegetable peels. As we enjoyed the delicious meal, Michael predictably complained, "Mom, spending $300 a month on food is way too much. Tell Emily off, will you?" When I explained the situation to Susan, who was taken aback by Michael's sudden remark, she said, "Isn't $300 normal for a couple? I could save more as a dedicated homemaker, but Emily works every day. She's doing well enough." But Michael wouldn't budge. "Mom, don't defend her. I used to cook when I lived alone, and I spent only $100 a month." I said, "That's impossible," thinking there's no way that could be true. Then Michael started fiddling with his phone and said, "Look, here's the proof," showing me his budgeting app with a smug face. It was indeed less than $100 a month. See? Even I, a man, can save that much. But hey, aren't you just buying stuff like bean sprouts, instant noodles, and the like? I sighed. Sure, if you're eating super cheap stuff like 19-cent bags of bean sprouts, fish sausages for $1.68, 5 packs of instant noodles for $1.52, and 78-cent bread all the time, even going to an all-you-can-eat buffet every weekend would keep you under $100 a month. Susan was also astonished, saying, "No wonder you always gorge on meat when you come here." I'm appalled. His dad, Peter, sided with me, saying, "Emily is making balanced meals with affordable ingredients. You, who think cooking is just about filling your belly, have no right to act all high and mighty." But Michael, with his pride hurt, didn't say anything, just wolfed down Susan's cooking and stormed out. "Sorry, dear, he just doesn't understand how hard it is to be a housewife," Susan apologized to me. Peter even suggested, why not have him stay at our place for a month, doing all the shopping and cooking? He might understand how tough it is to make balanced meals affordably while working. But Susan was doubtful, saying, "But you know, if he doesn't like it, he'll just run away like he did just now." That's it. I have a great idea. I shared my plan with Peter and Susan. It was to send Michael to my grandmother's place. My grandma, nearly 90, is a tough woman who survived World War II. She raised 5 children, including my mom, in poverty, so she's ingrained with a luxury is the enemy mentality. She lives alone near my parents' house now, still spry, and loves teaching others. Whenever I'm stumped with menu planning and call her, she's always eager to share ideas for dirt-cheap meals. She might just be able to straighten Michael out. Peter and Susan agreed enthusiastically. When I called Grandma, she was overjoyed, saying, "I've been bored lately. This will be fun." The next evening, Michael and I went to my grandma's place. Michael, learning of my plan only upon arrival, protested, "Why do I have to learn this stuff?" But Grandma provoked him, saying, "Modern men are all talk. You must be bossing Emily around, thinking you can't handle budgeting." That seemed to rile him up. "Piece of cake," he declared, agreeing to visit her place from the next evening. But Grandma put him in his place, saying, "What about breakfast? You might as well live here," and he reluctantly agreed to stay with her. A week later, I got a tearful call from Michael. "Emily, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I've reflected on it, please help me. From what Michael told me, it sounded like my grandmother really gave him a hard time. When he threw away the water that has been used to wash rice, she scolded him, "What are you throwing away? That can be used to clean oily dishes and for wiping down surfaces, even for blanching vegetables." If he tried to throw away the roots of spring onions, she would strike like lightning, saying, "Plant them in the soil. They'll be edible in a few months, don't you know that?" When he brought home store-bought salad dressing, she yelled at him, "You can make it cheaper with oil and vinegar. Anyway, we don't need fancy dressings." If he said he wanted to eat meat, she'd scold him, "Tofu has protein too. Don't be extravagant." And so, it seems he was lectured like this every day. He was also put in charge of buying groceries, so he learned firsthand how much money he had been carelessly spending on food. I didn't know. Meat and fish are that expensive. He never knew the prices since he only ate them at home when he was living alone. Michael caved after just a week, but I had anticipated he wouldn't last a month and made him sign a contract to pay me $1,000 if he didn't. Since Michael couldn't afford that, he reluctantly tried hard to last a month at my grandmother's. Since then, Michael not only stopped complaining about food expenses, but also started buying clothes at fast fashion stores and switched to a budget cell phone plan. It's hard to get a raise, so we need to save in areas like this. We want to have kids soon, he said, becoming very positive about saving money. Well, his real motivation seems to be, I don't want to be sent to that grandma's place again. But he still hasn't learned about cleaning and laundry, so I'm planning, somewhat cruelly, to send him back to my grandmother's for training once we have a child. My name is Hazel. I'm a 27-year-old stay-at-home mom. I had a problem with my mother-in-law who lived with us. She was constantly texting me about every little thing. It seemed a friend of hers taught her how to send text messages, but it turned out to be a nuisance. For her, it just became another way to harass me. She remained quiet when others were around, and chose to communicate her complaints to me through messages. Last night's dinner was terrible. Everything was so salty that I thought I was going to have high blood pressure. Were you trying to kill me? How many times do I have to tell you to make a decent meal? You're just useless. She went on and on about how bad my cooking was. I once suggested, if you don't like what I make, you should cook your own meals just like you used to. But she lashed out, "Are you trying to make me do all the housework? How dare you?" After our daughter, Lily, was born, my husband and I decided to live with my in-laws because they wanted to be near their grandchild. A year into it, my mother-in-law began going out frequently and even expected me to do her household duties. When we started living together, we used to have separate meals. Therefore, I didn't have to cook for my in-laws. I was once asked to prepare dinner for them when my mother-in-law caught a cold. Since then, it became my job to cook for the whole family. She seemed to have gotten too comfortable with me doing whatever she asked me to do. I wish I could say no to her, but I was so scared of confrontation and fighting with her. I thought I had no choice but to endure her subtle harassment. But I myself was a mother after all. Seeing my daughter cry one day finally made me realize that I'd had enough. That day, my mother-in-law had been out since morning. She often seemed to lose track of time when she hung out with her friends. She would frequently forget to take out the trash, which made me doubt if she even knew what day it was. There were times she came home late for dinner, but she would complain if we ate without her. So if she didn't return home by 4 p.m., I would text her. Usually, she would ignore my messages, but she actually replied that day. What a waste of money to order Mexican food delivery. I had to cancel it. Stop being lazy, you useless fool. As soon as I read her message on my phone, I called her. What did you mean by canceling the Mexican food delivery? Oh, you must be wondering how I knew about the delivery date? You're such a fool. You were probably trying to please me by ordering my favorite food. But it was stupid of you to throw away the food menu with the delivery date written on it into the trash can. My mother-in-law sneered and said she found out about my wasteful spending because I threw it out where it was easy to be found. I was absolutely appalled that she would rummage through the trash just to harass me. Do you even know what day it is today? Can't we indulge ourselves just for today? What are you talking about? You don't have the right to indulge yourself even for one day. Your job as a wife is to be frugal. It's unacceptable to spend the money earned by your husband just for your convenience. As she scolded me over the phone, I could hear her friends laughing in the background. You should have known your place as a wife by now. Look, it's almost 5 p.m. Hurry up and go grocery shopping for dinner. Then she hung up. I went white realizing what she had done. In a panic, I rushed to the supermarket, fretting over what I could make as a substitute meal. What are you going to make with these ingredients? Surely, you can't make Mexican food. She commented smugly when she returned home at 6 p.m. Unfortunately, the frozen tacos and burritos were all sold out. She looked very pleased to see me frustrated. Grandma, welcome back. When Lily saw her, she ran up to her. Grandma, we are having your favorite food for dinner today, she said with an innocent smile. Oh, is that so? Yes. I asked Mommy for it. Grandma, I knew you liked Mexican food. My mother-in-law looked shocked and turned to me. Yes, I was the one who ordered the Mexican food to be delivered, not to please her, but at my daughter's request. Grandma, today is your birthday. That's why we wanted to have your favorite Mexican food, which is my favorite too. What? My birthday is on Friday, not today. Today is Friday. Remember, you said your doctor's appointment was changed from this Friday to Wednesday next week? At my words, my mother-in-law had a stunned look on her face. According to my husband, in his family, they only celebrated birthdays for the children and not for the adults. So they never had birthday parties for their elderly parents. My mother-in-law probably thought her birthday was just another day, plus she was confused about the days of the week as usual. Realizing what she had done, she turned pale. Lily, I will quickly go and change my clothes. I'll be right back, she said to my daughter, and hurriedly went to her bedroom. Within a minute, she sent me a text message. Do something about it. That was what it said. I messaged her back, saying that I checked the nearby supermarket, but that there was no frozen Mexican food left in their freezer. Her reply to my message was, then pretend there has been a misunderstanding on the delivery date or something. As I didn't send her a reply, she came into the kitchen and told me to go to the living room. Hurry up. Otherwise, Lily will start to suspect. My daughter had no trouble accepting the fact that there was no Mexican food for dinner. It seems the Mexican cook suddenly got a stomach ache and had to go home, I told her. I honestly thought she would cry, but she said, poor thing, having a tummy ache. It's okay, I can have a taco another time. Seeing her sad and disappointed face, I felt guilty for lying. My mother-in-law wouldn't let me go back to the kitchen, so I just played with my daughter to distract her from her feeling disappointed. My mother-in-law seemed to have prepared dinner, though. Soon after my father-in-law and my husband came home from work, we all sat at the dining table and started the dinner. Which was supposedly a birthday celebration for my mother-in-law. Aren't we supposed to have Mexican today? The cook got a tummy ache, Lily said. Confused, my husband asked me about it, and I explained that it was cancelled due to a mix-up on the delivery date. He looked dubious, but then my mother-in-law quickly interrupted, are you sure it was just a mix-up on the date? Didn't you just forget to order the food? Poor Lily. She was looking forward to surprising me for my birthday. Hearing that, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe she shifted the blame onto me, after making me cover for her. As I clenched my fist, Lily whispered in my ear, Mommy, I want to eat some cake. That was when I realized I'd momentarily gotten lost in my own anger. It's a surprise you came up with. Wait here, I'll go and get the cake. I whispered back and stood up. From the living room, I heard Lily's voice, saying, each cake is small. The chocolate one is mine. But because it's a big piece, I'll share it with Mommy. Mommy and I both love chocolate. Grandma, you can have the one with strawberries. Lily must have gotten so excited that she spilled the beans about the surprise, which she made me promise not to tell her grandmother. She said it was a secret between her and I. I couldn't help but smile at her cuteness, but as I opened the fridge, I frowned. What? The box full of cakes that was delivered earlier was missing. I heard the notification sound came from my phone in my pocket, and a dreadful thought crossed my mind. I turned to look at the kitchen trash can. I received a few messages from my mother-in-law, and each message was very short, as if she sent in a hurry. In the fridge, there was a box. Most were chocolate ones. I thought you wasted money on your favorite cakes. Well, I did love chocolate. But even if it was just a misunderstanding on her part, the idea of her throwing away food before dinner was absurd to me. Inside the lidded trash can, I found the petit fours, tragically squashed. The little cakes that had sparkled like jewels in my daughter's eyes. My mother-in-law must have realized what she had thrown out were the cakes my daughter was looking forward to. Do something about it. If not, I'll say the dinner incident was your fault. Pretend the cake was off. She kept sending me short messages, one after another. What a selfish woman she was. I stood in the kitchen, dumbfounded, when I heard my daughter's voice calling me. Mommy, aren't you bringing the cakes over here? I could hear her standing up and coming towards the kitchen. Lily, no. You can't go into the kitchen. You have to wait patiently for your mommy to come back to the table. The way my mother-in-law said to Lily sounded very harsh. Mom, stop it. Lily doesn't like it. Why are you so desperate? My husband said. I want to go and see. I want to see my cake. Don't be silly, come back here. Then, something hit the floor with a loud thump, followed by Lily's crying. Snapping back to reality, I rushed to the living room, and my daughter flew into my arms when she saw me. What on earth happened? When Mom yanked Lily's arm, she fell to the floor. I just tried to stop Lily from. What kind of person makes a child cry like that? My husband and my father-in-law glared at her, who was at a loss for words, but then she looked at me as if she remembered something. Hazel, I thought you might have ordered the cakes to be delivered on a different date, just like you messed up with the Mexican food order. I just didn't want Lily to find out about that. Everything is your fault. My mother-in-law started spouting nonsense. All this was probably because I had always been submissive to her. She thought she could again get away with her nonsense. But this time, she crossed the line. She made my daughter cry just to cover up her own mistake. I let that happen because I was weak. I'm sorry, Lily, I said. I gently stroked her back and spoke to her. Grandma threw away all the cakes, and she was the one who canceled the Mexican food delivery. I'm really sorry for lying to you. Hazel, how dare you say that? My mother-in-law barked, but my father-in-law silenced her with a glare. Why is Grandma so mean? I don't know. Maybe because she doesn't like me. Is it because of Grandma that you always have to do the cleaning over and over? I saw Grandma making you do that. I was speechless. I had no idea my daughter knew. Grandma, you are so mean to my mommy. I don't like you. You aren't getting anything anymore. My mother-in-law was quite shocked when she heard her beloved granddaughter say that to her, and she felt betrayed by me. Do you have any proof that I did it? She screamed, so I showed her all the text messages she had been sending me. I couldn't say no to you because I was weak, but if you make my daughter cry, it's a different story. I will never forgive you for hurting her feelings. As I said I'd expose everything she had done to me, my mother-in-law sank helplessly to the floor, looking very frightened. I never expected her text messages, which had always caused me anxiety, to become useful in a situation like this. My husband, reviewing her past messages on my phone, angrily said to his mother, "So you've been secretly bullying my wife all this time?" Seeing Lily startled by his angry face, I calmly asked my husband to take her to another room. Hazel, how long have you been treated like this? When my father-in-law asked me, I told him everything about the mistreatment I had endured. My father-in-law was puzzled especially about the money his wife had been squandering whenever she went out with her friends. Then something seemed to click. Did you spend all the money that was meant for Hazel for living expenses? Since I started cooking their meals, my father-in-law intended to pay me for food, including my labor. It was nothing like that. I thought Hazel would have wasted the money if I had given it to her. The only person wasting the money was you. You deceived me and bullied Hazel in such a cruel way. I'm sorry, dear. My mother-in-law sobbed. But he scolded her, "Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Hazel," and she started begging me for forgiveness. Looking at her, I said to my father-in-law, "Even if your wife apologizes to me, there's no way I can forgive her for what she'd done." Understanding how I felt, my father-in-law divorced his wife, saying, "I can no longer be with someone who lies and squanders money." It turned out she even borrowed money from a loan shark because the money she had been stealing from us wasn't enough for her. When all her friends found out that she became penniless, they cut ties with her, saying, "When the money stops, so does the friendship." With nowhere else to go, she returned to her parents' home and is now working very hard to repay her debts. She's being bullied by her brother and sister-in-law, who are giving her a hard time. "What goes around comes around" was what my husband said about the situation his mother's in. "I'm no longer afraid of the notification sound on my phone whenever I receive messages. I feel a deep sense of relief that my long-standing problem has been resolved."